In the heart of Kansas, there lived a young woman named Sarah Wren. She was known for her strong spirit and fierce independence, qualities that often set her apart from the women in her small town. While most of the other girls dreamed of settling down with good husbands, Sarah longed for adventure beyond the dusty roads of her hometown. She would often gaze at the horizon, imagining a life filled with the unknown, far removed from the confines of societal expectations. Sarah shared a particularly close bond with her brother, Tom. They had grown up together, weathering life's storms side by side. Tom was the epitome of bravery in Sarah's eyes. As children, they would play cowboys, creating imaginary worlds of Wild West heroes and daring escapades. As they got older, that bond only deepened. Tom always encouraged Sarah to follow her dreams and break free from the ordinary. He believed that she could be anything she wanted, and his belief fueled her ambitions. But their idyllic life was shattered when Tom got into trouble. Boasting an unyielding sense of honor, he had been drawn into a duel with Sheriff Boyd Kline, a man who held a firm grip on the town's law and order. The conflict had escalated quickly, and before anyone knew it, Tom was facing a gun against a man who had not only been in power, but had also become a figure of fear among the townsfolk. The day Tom fell in that duel was etched in Sarah's mind as deeply as the scar across Levi Boone's cheek, a man who had once stood steadfast beside her brother, but now walked a different path after choosing to flee. In light of Tom's death, Sheriff Kline wasted no time crafting a narrative that shifted the blame onto her brother, claiming he had drawn first. The townspeople swallowed this story whole, believing it without question. To them, Kline was not just a sheriff, he was a protector. And Sarah, she was merely left to mourn. Despite the town's collective conviction in Kline's version of events, Sarah felt something shift within her. She knew in her heart that Tom had been wronged. The thought of accepting Boyd Kline as her husband twisted a knot in her stomach, and yet here she was, being pushed toward this undesirable fate by circumstances outside her control. Her father's death months earlier had left her vulnerable and alone, a perfect target for Kline to seize upon. Sarah's marriage was not born out of love or respect. It was an arrangement forged through manipulation and desperation. As the wedding day approached, she took every chance she could to escape into her own thoughts, imagining an alternate reality where she could still chase those dreams she had once harbored so fiercely. But each moment spent fleeing into fantasy was met with the harsh reality awaiting her at the altar. As she sat before her mirror that morning, dressed in a simple white gown that hung heavily on her shoulders, she couldn't help but feel like an actress in a tragic play meant to be performed for an audience that expected nothing less than perfection. The lace caught the light, casting intricate shadows across the room that seemed to mock her desire for freedom. With every heartbeat echoing in her ears, Sarah fixed her resolve. She would find a way out of this marriage. She would not be just another name on Boyd Kline's list of conquests. Her strangled thoughts were interrupted as she heard whispers outside. The guests arriving, all dressed in their Sunday best, eyes full of excitement and expectation for the union they believed would strengthen their community. For Sarah, however, each whisper tore at her insides like a wild beast yearning for escape. She caught flashes of joy on faces that meant well, but could never understand what she was enduring. They celebrated an event that represented everything she dreaded, captivity disguised as companionship. As she took deep breaths to steady herself before stepping into that fateful ceremony, her mind wandered back to moments shared with Tom, his laughter mingling with the wind as they rode their horses through open fields. Those days felt like a distant memory now. How could everything change so quickly? In that moment of reflection and dread, Sarah felt that familiar spark flicker within her, a reminder of who she truly was beneath layers of obligation and sorrow. With each step toward the altar, she hungered for something more, no longer willing to let fate dictate her path. The preacher stood at the front, ready to pronounce vows that bound her to Boyd Kline forever. However, unknown to everyone present, everything was about to change in an instant, setting off a chain reaction fueled by truth and justice. Just as Kline began to speak those fateful words that would seal her doom, the doors swung open suddenly. A tall figure strode into the church with purpose, his revolver resting at his side and a bullet scar tracing down his cheek like a badge from battles fought long ago. It was Levi Boone, a name wrapped in whispers and rumors among townspeople. In silence, he captured everyone's attention, not by shouting or demanding it, but simply by being there. With one swift motion, he tossed something at Boyd's feet. A silver locket that gleamed against the wooden floorboards like hope piercing through despair. Inside that locket lay secrets capable of unraveling everything Sarah desperately sought to escape, from lies woven into fabrications hanging heavy over their lives to choices made under duress. And so began a turning point. A chance for Sarah to decide whether she would embrace the truth and fight for freedom or succumb to the illusion carefully crafted by Sheriff Boyd Kline. As the sun rose high on Sarah's wedding day, a sense of foreboding hung over the town like dark storm clouds. The air buzzed with excitement and chatter, but for Sarah there was no joy to be found. Each step toward the church felt as if she were trudging through mud, each footfall heavy with dread. Sheriff Boyd Kline had woven a web of lies that ensnared not only her, but also the entire community, and now she was being pulled into a life she did not choose. Boyd had painted a picture that cast her brother Tom as the villain in his ill-fated duel, a claim everyone in town accepted without question. In their eyes, Tom was reckless, a man whose pride led him to draw first against the law. But Sarah knew better. She could see through the layers of deceit. Tom had been driven by honor, not malice, and yet Boyd's narrative had turned him into a ghost, a mere shadow of the man he once was. The townsfolk rallied around Boyd as if he were a hero, eager to support the sheriff who kept order amidst chaos. They couldn't see the truth lurking behind his confident facade. To Sarah, Boyd was nothing more than a manipulative man who thrived on power and control. The thought of marrying him twisted her stomach into knots. How could she bind herself to someone who had disrespected her brother's memory? As she sat in front of her mirror that morning, Sarah caught glimpses of herself in the reflection. A bride adorned in white lace, intended for happiness. Yet all she felt was suffocation. The gown, beautiful and pure, seemed to mock her as it hung heavily around her shoulders, constraining her like chains, instead of celebrating a new beginning. She longed to rip it off and run far away from this day that loomed over her like an unwanted shroud. The town's excitement echoed through the streets. People gathered in clusters outside the church, chatter bursting forth like wildflowers in spring. They exchanged smiles and laughter, blissfully unaware of the turmoil brewing within Sarah's heart. To them, this wedding symbolized strength and unity within their community, a chance to bolster their ties against any lingering shadows left by Tom's death. But they didn't know that this union would only deepen those shadows for Sarah. Inside the church, anticipation crackled in the air as guests took their seats. Pastor Jenkins stood ready at the altar, his voice set to bless what he believed would be a harmonious joining of two lives, a life that Sarah felt was being forced upon her without consideration for her own desires or dreams. With every step she took down the aisle, Sarah felt like she was walking toward her own execution rather than toward love and partnership. She recalled all those times Tom had cheered her on, and reminded her that life could be full of adventure if only one dared to seize it. Now he was gone, leaving her grappling with grief while facing a future dictated by Boyd Kline. As she reached the front of the church, Sarah's eyes darted around at familiar faces, friends who wore expressions of joy mixed with pity, neighbors who offered supportive smiles tinged with unspoken judgment, and among them sat Boyd himself, exuding an air of triumph that made bile rise in her throat. He stood tall and imposing next to Pastor Jenkins, waiting for her to take his hand, the final act that would seal her fate forever. In that moment, everything within her screamed for freedom. She wanted to shout out that this wasn't right. She wanted clarity for everyone who believed in Kline's twisted story. But just as Boyd began to speak those binding words meant to tie their lives together for eternity, an unexpected interruption shattered the illusion surrounding them all. The doors swung open violently with a crash that echoed through the solemn space like thunderclaps breaking apart a clear sky. All heads turned toward the entrance as Levi Boone stepped inside, his presence commanding attention effortlessly. He was a figure both feared and respected. Those who had witnessed his past escapades knew better than to dismiss him lightly. Levi moved forward with purpose, despite being framed by whispers surging through the crowd like waves crashing against rocks. His rough appearance spoke volumes. A bullet scar traced down his cheek, a reminder of battles fought, and his revolver rested calmly at his side as if it were part of him. In silence, he captured everyone's gaze, not by yelling or demanding attention, but simply through his very existence. Then came an unexpected twist. With one swift motion, he tossed something onto the ground at Boyd's feet, a silver locket that glimmered against wooden floorboards like hope piercing through despair. Gasps filled the air as murmurs raced through stunned guests. What could this mean? Everyone watched in rapt attention as Levi remained stoic and silent. Inside that locket lay secrets capable of unraveling everything Sarah had desperately sought to escape, the very truths that could expose Boyd's deception and perhaps reveal Tom's true character as well. In this moment of chaos and revelation, Sarah's heart raced anew with possibilities. Could this be her chance? Would she finally be able to reclaim her voice amid so much darkness? As these thoughts swirled in her mind like leaves caught in a whirlwind, Sarah realized she stood at a crossroads, one path leading back to captivity under Kline's reign, while another urged her forward into an uncertain but potentially liberating future, fueled by truth. As the whispers of Levi Boone's sudden appearance hung in the air, a wave of unease rippled through the congregation gathered in the church. Sarah Wren's heart raced with confusion and hope, but beyond her own turmoil lay the stark reality of her community's acceptance of Sheriff Boyd Kline's narrative. They saw him as a protector and a hero, while she stood on the edge of something much darker. The townsfolk, who filled the pews with their eager faces, seemed oblivious to the storm brewing under the surface. In the days following Tom's death, Boyd had deftly spun his tale. He painted a violent portrait of the duel, where Tom was driven by wild pride to draw first against a lawman who was merely upholding justice. The sheriff's words had settled over the community like a thick fog, clouding their judgment and distorting the truth. Sarah vividly remembered how quickly rumors had spread after Tom's death. Families gathered in their homes, clutching cups of coffee or whiskey, as they discussed the terrible tragedy. They spoke of Tom's supposed recklessness and how he had challenged Boyd without cause. The sheriff had played his role expertly, casting himself as both judge and executioner. With every retelling, the truth about Tom faded further into obscurity, replaced by an image crafted to serve Boyd's interests. "Did you hear how Tom had a temper?" one neighbor lamented in hushed tones at the general store. "He must have thought he was invincible to challenge Sheriff Kline like that." What was he thinking? Each comment chipped away at Tom's dignity, burying him beneath layers of blame that he did not deserve. Even Sarah's closest friends echoed these sentiments, their voices laced with sympathy for her plight but allegiance to Boyd's version of events. "You must be so proud to marry someone so brave," they said, their eyes shining with admiration for Kline. "He'll keep you safe and take care of you." The irony stung Sarah deeply. These friendships were built on trust, yet now felt like shackles tying her to a future she could not accept. Before long, Boyd's reputation solidified in town like melted wax, unshakable and seemingly perfect. To venture against him was to invite scorn or worse, becoming an outcast among those who dared not challenge authority. This fear plagued Sarah. She understood that speaking out against Boyd could lead to a backlash that could endanger not only herself, but also anyone who chose to believe in her truth. While she stood at that altar feeling trapped, Sarah couldn't help but wonder how many others felt similarly bound by silence. With each glance around the room, familiarity morphed into hostility. She sensed their eyes shift away whenever they met hers, as if they feared what she might reveal about their beloved sheriff. As Levi's presence filled the church, Sarah hoped that maybe, just maybe, he could unravel the tightly bound threads of deceit. Her heart pounded louder than before as his stoic figure exuded an undeniable confidence amidst uncertainty. She remembered him from her childhood, a friend who had laughed with Tom as they plotted adventures under the expansive Kansas sky. What had led him down this path of fugitive life? And why now? With all eyes drawn toward Levi as he stood at the church entrance, Sarah felt a flicker of courage swell within her. He was someone unafraid to confront authority. Perhaps he held the key to not only her freedom, but also to restoring Tom's name tarnished by lies. The air grew heavy with anticipation as Levi bent down and tossed the silver locket at Boyd's feet. A gasp swept through the crowd like wildfire, curiosity mingling with disbelief. What could possibly lie within that locket? Its sudden arrival sparked whispers amongst the guests. Murmurs swirled faster than any rumor ever could, casting doubt on Boyd's unwavering facade. If there are truths within that locket, Sarah thought desperately, then maybe this day won't end in despair after all. The notion pulsed through her veins like electricity, the chance for liberation teetering just within reach. Boyd bent low to pick up the locket that had interrupted his carefully orchestrated ceremony. His expression shifted from surprise to calculated calmness as he examined it closely, his brow furrowed slightly, revealing cracks in his confidence that hadn't been visible moments prior. In that brief moment of uncertainty from Kline, Sarah felt emboldened. She found herself yearning to speak, to shake off the chains forged from community loyalty and expectations, to reclaim the narrative buried alongside her brother's honor. "Let them see," she whispered silently to herself, glancing at Levi as he stood unwavering despite all odds stacked against him. Let them see what really happened. In this decisive instant when truth hovered tantalizingly close, Sarah understood one thing. No matter what unfolded next, she would no longer be silent nor complicit in her own fate, nor in allowing her brother's memory to be forever tainted by lies crafted by those too afraid to confront reality. It was time for her voice, unwavering and fierce, to rise above all fear surrounding her. The morning sun cast a golden hue over the small Kansas town, but for Sarah Wren it felt as though darkness had settled in her heart. Today was her wedding day, yet any semblance of joy was overshadowed by dread. The church was adorned with flowers and ribbons, a beautiful sight meant to celebrate love, but to Sarah it felt like a prison decorated for her own captivity. As she stood in front of the mirror, wearing the white lace gown that seemed to cling to her like chains, she couldn't help but think about how it represented everything she did not want. Her reflection stared back at her, a bride on the verge of an unwanted union, while inside she felt like a storm brewing. Each stitch of the dress reminded her of all the choices made for her, all the expectations that had been placed upon her shoulders since her brother's death. Her mother had always dreamt of this day, picturing Sarah walking down the aisle toward a handsome suitor who would sweep her off her feet. But instead of excitement and hope, Sarah felt only anxiety and regret as she thought about choosing Sheriff Boyd Kline as her husband. He was not the protector everyone believed him to be. He was a man who had twisted the truth to serve his own narrative. "Sarah," called her friend Mary from outside the door. "Are you ready? Everyone's waiting. You look lovely." Lovely, Sarah thought bitterly. All these people were gathered to celebrate a union built on lies and manipulation. She could hear the excited chatter of guests filtering in through the church doors, friends and neighbors who believed Kline's version of events without question. They spoke in hushed tones about how brave and honorable he was while casting judgment on Tom's character. It stung every time someone mentioned Tom's name in passing, their words coated with pity rather than understanding. "I'll be right there," she called back, forcing a smile despite the tightness in her chest. She took one last look at herself in the mirror. Beneath the layers of fabric and makeup lay a woman who longed for freedom, a woman whose spirit had not been crushed despite the weight of expectations placed upon her. As she stepped out into the bright sunlight streaming through stained glass windows that painted vibrant colors across the wooden floorboards, Sarah felt every eye turned toward her with anticipation. The congregation filled every pew, their faces illuminated by excitement mixed with sympathy. She caught glimpses of familiar faces adorned with smiles that seemed to mask their true feelings, anxiety for what lay ahead for both Sarah and Boyd. The church itself was an imposing structure, filled with echoes of laughter from past weddings and whispers of secrets held within its walls. It stood tall against the backdrop of an endless sky, much like Sarah felt she had to do today, standing tall even as everything inside screamed for escape. As she walked down the aisle cautiously, each step echoed like thunder against polished wood floors. Her heart raced as she made eye contact with friends who offered warm smiles, but whose eyes flickered away as if afraid to meet hers too long. They were caught between loyalty to their sheriff and empathy for his bride, a position that only deepened Sarah's isolation. Boyd stood at the altar, dressed impeccably in his uniform, a symbol of authority and control. He looked so confident, so self-assured as he awaited her arrival with an expression that promised safety and stability, but belied his darker nature, lurking just beneath the surface. How could anyone see him as anything other than what he truly was? A man willing to lie for power? As she approached him, dread washed over her like icy water. Each heartbeat seemed louder than before. What would happen once those vows were exchanged? She was stepping closer into bondage, disguised as partnership. Pastor Jenkins stood ready at the altar, prepared to pronounce them husband and wife, in front of a crowd eager to celebrate what they believed to be love blossoming amidst tragedy. But what kind of love would it be? A love built on deception? A union born from fear? Sarah's mind began racing through memories. The laughter shared with Tom under Kansas skies, the adventures they dreamed up together, and how their bond had been severed by one man's ambition fueled by darkness disguised as justice. The emotions swirled within her. Anger at Boyd for taking everything away from them. Sadness for Tom's absence. Fear for what lay ahead. But most importantly, determination began to rise within alongside those feelings, a flicker igniting against overwhelming odds. As she reached the altar and faced Boyd directly across from Pastor Jenkins, her breath caught momentarily, the anticipation in the air palpable. She remembered Levi's unexpected arrival just moments ago. What if he held answers hidden within that silver locket? What if his presence could shift everything? In that instant, before stepping into a future defined by someone else's choices, Sarah realized she had one chance to reclaim not only her voice, but also Tom's legacy buried beneath lies crafted by those too afraid to confront reality. And so she stood there, facing Boyd, her heart beating stronger than ever before, with hope twinkling faintly against despair, while uncertainty wrapped around them all, like fog clinging stubbornly against dawn. Would today mark an ending, or perhaps an awakening? With every sense heightened around them, the murmurings among guests quieting now, the tension thickening like summer heat before a storm, it became clear. Whatever happened next would change everything forever. Not just for Sarah Wren, but for all those bound by silence amidst lies woven tightly throughout their lives. As the preacher's voice began to fill the church with solemnity, the atmosphere shifted abruptly when the doors swung open with a jarring thud. The congregation fell silent, and all eyes turned toward the entrance, where a figure stood framed by harsh sunlight. It was Levi Boone. A name that once brought warmth to Sarah Wren's heart now evoked a whirlwind of memories soaked in nostalgia and sorrow. Levi stepped into the church with an air of rugged defiance, instantly commanding attention. His tall frame was cloaked in a dust-covered coat that whispered of long travels and harsh encounters. Sunlight glinted off the revolver holstered at his side, hinting at his readiness for whatever danger lay ahead. The bullet scar etched along his cheek was a permanent reminder of his past, a mark he bore like a badge of honor despite its association with pain and loss. His hair, tousled by the wind, framed a face that had aged significantly since Sarah had last seen him. Strong jawline, hardened features. He looked like a man who had faced countless battles, physically and emotionally. Yet there was something undeniably fierce within his gaze, a burning determination that cut through the air like a knife. For Sarah, he embodied hope wrapped in danger, and in that moment he became both her salvation and her potential doom. The church buzzed with whispers as Levi moved deeper into the space, crossing the threshold that separated her past from an uncertain future. Sarah's heart raced. Memories flooded back, from laughter shared during sun-soaked days to whispered secrets under starry skies, now replaced by this heavy anticipation. Once allies in adventure and mischief, their paths had diverged under circumstances neither could control. She felt a mix of longing for their innocence and caution about what his presence might mean today. As Levi reached the altar where Sheriff Boyd stood rigidly, every intimidating inch of Kline's carefully constructed authority shrank under Levi's fierce demeanor. In Boyd's world he was law. Here stood Levi, marked as an outlaw, but carrying truths powerful enough to unravel lies. A silence clung to the air as Levi locked eyes with Sarah, their connection conveying more than words ever could. The weight of unspoken promises felt within that brief glance. Levi's gaze swept over the congregation. Skepticism painted across unfamiliar faces revealed his status as a fugitive did nothing to quell their curiosity or fears about him crashing this sacred occasion. For many in town, he had transformed from boyhood friend to shadowy figure lurking on the fringes of their lives, a reminder that not everything was as simple as Boyd Kline suggested. As everyone awaited what would happen next, Levi extended his arm in one swift motion, elegant yet calculated, and tossed something toward Boyd's feet. A silver locket that gleamed against polished wood, like a beacon cutting through murky waters. Gasps erupted, and murmurs ricocheted off walls steeped in tradition and expectation. The locket landed softly, yet possessed the weight of revelations yearning to be freed. A tangible piece of truth encased within delicate metal. Seeing it spiral to rest at Boyd's feet ignited flames of defiance within Sarah's chest as questions flooded her mind. What lay inside? Was this the key to unlocking their fates? In that instant, filled with tension, the congregation caught between fear and intrigue. She felt empowered by Levi's boldness. Hope, intertwined with dread, knotted tightly around her heart. Boyd bent low to retrieve the locket, but even from her distance, Sarah could see strands of uncertainty flit across his stoic facade, an expression she had never witnessed before but desperately longed to exploit. Did he fear what might come to light? As he held it aloft for all to see, she felt every heartbeat pulsing louder, with each thud responding to her wish for liberation rather than despair. What would happen next? Would Levi's presence shift perceptions anchored so deeply in community sentiment? As doubt coursed through every heart other than hers, she sensed every detail magnifying, a loose thread ready to unravel itself completely if only given enough friction. In this moment, one poised delicately between the past and what lay ahead, Sarah searched for courage amidst swirling emotions. Anger at how easily Boyd manipulated perception. Resentment for being forced into this corner. Grief for Tom pulled further away from memory under Kline's oppressive rule. Finally, determination rising fiercely to the surface, unwavering against overwhelming odds. The tension hung like musk as Levi returned his focus upon Sarah alone, not swayed by those behind her, nor entangled in any doubts about what lay ahead, as if he alone understood how delicately poised they all were on this precipice between right and wrong. She could feel it. She could reach out and grasp possibilities again. The moment felt suspended, a fragile bubble surrounding them all, as Sarah prepared herself for whatever path unfolded next, among whispered secrets entwined within that locket, meant to hold truths shrouded in darkness or clarity, bringing forth light against lies carefully crafted over time. Today held endless possibilities, neither bound solely by past choices nor destined merely towards future disappointments, but rather igniting chance encased within that glimmering silver object landing squarely in front of her brother's accused murderer. The sheriff who had twisted reality into something nearly unrecognizable while hiding behind authority deemed unassailable. And so she stood there waiting, her spirit rekindling amongst uncertainty, as silence enveloped them once more while everything hung delicately on what came next. A dance between revelation and consequence, ripe for exploration, breaking free from chains binding hopes cast aside too swiftly, before realization dawned anew above them all at last. The air in the church grew thick with tension as Levi Boone stepped into the sacred space, the sunlight streaming in behind him like a spotlight illuminating his presence. He stood at the entrance, silhouetted against the bright light, and for a moment, time seemed to stop. The congregation held its collective breath. Murmurs faded into silence, and all eyes were drawn to him like moths to a flame. Levi was a striking figure, rugged and imposing. His tall frame was cloaked in a dust-covered coat that hinted at long journeys fraught with danger. The bullet scar on his cheek told stories of battles fought and survived, while the revolver at his side suggested he was ever ready for conflict. As he moved forward into the church, each step echoed against the wooden floorboards like thunder rolling across distant hills. Sarah's heart raced as he approached. She could feel a surge of emotions welling inside her. Memories of laughter shared with him during carefree days flooded her mind. sun-soaked afternoon spent dreaming of future adventures now replaced by this unexpected reality. Levi had once been a friend to both her and Tom, but now he stood before them as an outlaw, a fugitive marked by the choices he had made to escape his own haunting past. The atmosphere shifted palpably as Levi reached the altar where Sheriff Boyd Kline maintained his rigid posture, exuding authority and control. The sheriff had been an unyielding figure in Sarah's life since Tom's death, but now his carefully constructed facade began to crack under the weight of Levi's fierce presence. The tension felt electric, as if the air itself vibrated with potential energy, a brewing storm waiting for release. Without uttering a single word, Levi extended his arm with deliberate precision, tossing a silver locket toward Boyd's feet with an effortless motion that spoke volumes. The locket gleamed as it sailed through the air, catching glimmers of light and drawing gasps from those assembled. It landed softly, yet carried an undeniable weight, a harbinger of truth shrouded in mystery. As it rested on the polished wood floorboards before Boyd Kline, silence enveloped the church. It was as though everyone held their breath, waiting for what would come next. The locket sat there like a beacon amidst uncertainty, a tangible object poised to unravel secrets long buried beneath layers of deceit. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. Questions swirled in her mind like leaves caught in a whirlwind. What lay hidden inside that locket? Would it contain revelations powerful enough to shake the very foundations of Boyd's fabricated narrative? The congregation's collective gaze shifted nervously between Levi and Boyd, each person wrestling with their own apprehensions about what this interruption could mean for them. Boyd bent down slowly to retrieve the locket, his usual composure faltering for just an instant, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face that Sarah had never seen before. She leaned forward slightly, straining to catch a glimpse of what might be revealed within that small piece of silver. The sheriff held it aloft for all to see. Its very presence challenged everything he had constructed around Tom's story. The tension crackled in the air like static electricity before a storm. Sarah could sense how pivotal this moment was, not just for her, but for everyone present. Would this mark a turning point? Would they finally begin to see beyond Boyd's lies? Her heart pounded fiercely as she glanced at Levi once more. He remained silent yet resolute, eyes locked on hers as if willing her to find strength amid uncertainty. In that brief exchange between them lay unspoken promises, hope intertwined with determination. Sarah felt emboldened by his confidence, even amidst trepidation, as if together they might finally challenge what had been imposed upon them for far too long. Whispers began anew among the guests, curiosity mingling with anxiety, as they questioned what truths might be unveiled from within that delicate locket. For Sarah, it became clear that whatever happened next would resonate far beyond this single moment. An awakening from slumber induced by fear, where truth waited just beyond reach. As Boyd examined the locket closely while maintaining an air of authority, despite uncertainty gnawing at him from within, Sarah recognized how fragile everything felt right now. Like glass poised on the edge of breaking beneath pressure, applied too forcefully without care or consideration. What would unfold? Would Levi's bold entrance change perceptions entrenched within her community? She sensed every detail magnifying, the urgency palpable, a loose thread ready to unravel itself completely if only given enough friction. And so they stood, Levi confronting Boyd, Sarah caught between her past and future, that silver locket resting between them all like a fate, woven intricately through history, yet now teetering on revelation as silence reigned once more. This moment held endless potential, the promise of liberation or destruction, and it all rested on what lay hidden within that gleaming silver object lying before them all in stark defiance against oppression, crafted from lies spun tightly around their lives. Everything hung delicately in balance as anticipation thickened around them like fog rolling over fields at dawn. A dance between revelation and consequence, ripe for exploration, breaking free from chains, binding hopes cast aside too swiftly before realization dawned anew above them all at last. As the locket lay sparkling on the wooden floorboards of the church, a heaviness settled over the congregation, each breath swallowed by the weight of expectation. Boyd Kline, momentarily stunned, bent down further, his fingers brushing over the smooth surface of the locket as if it were a live ember ready to ignite a firestorm. As he lifted it to eye level, his expression shifted from shock to something akin to dread. He knew what this moment could mean. The congregation watched intently, and Sarah held her breath, their fate hanging delicately in the balance. Levi stood unmoving, resolute as silence enveloped them all. What secrets would this silver locket reveal? Would it finally unravel the tapestry of lies sewn into their lives? With a quick glance at Sarah, Levi seemed to convey an unspoken message, a mixture of hope and determination that flooded her veins with courage. As if sensing their collective anticipation, Boyd slowly opened the locket, revealing a folded piece of paper tucked safely within. He unfolded it carefully while glancing around at the expectant faces before returning his focus to the note. His voice was shaky but clear when he began to read. "To whom it may concern," he began. The room fell even quieter. "I write these words as my truth. A truth I've carried on my shoulders since that fateful day when Tom Wren met his end at my hands. You may know me as Levi Boone, a friend turned fugitive, trapped by my own misguided actions." Gasps erupted in the crowd as murmurs rippled through like waves in a pond disturbed by a pebble's drop. Sarah felt her heart racing. This was it. This was what she had hoped would come to light. Boyd continued reading, albeit less confidently now. "What you believe, the tale woven by Sheriff Kline, is incomplete and clouded with false honor. It is not Tom who drew first. I did, fueled by arrogance and too many drinks shared with Kline himself. Words intended to taunt us escalated into reckless bravado that ignited our tempers. The admission hung in the air like smoke from a gun, thick and choking. The truth began unfolding before their very eyes, challenging everything Boyd had constructed around Tom's character. Tom had no intention of escalating our disagreement into violence, Levi's note continued. But when I provoked him into defending his pride in front of witnesses, the sheriff's authority masked beneath an umbrella of perceived justice. I placed us both on shaky ground where right and wrong blurred into chaos. The breaths taken by those gathered shifted from anxious anticipation to outright disbelief. They started sharing glances, some dubious while others showed flickers of understanding dawning upon troubled faces. The men who once rallied behind Boyd now appeared conflicted. They too had shared drinks under skies heavy with untruths. Stories spun tightly around their notions of honor, upheld, instead, laced games purposely crafted, delivering fictional convictions. It was I who shot first, an action that riveted change irrevocably as it set forth tragedy. Boyd's voice faltered further still. Anger mingled with fear, blurring any semblance of control he had evoked. Thus far surrounded amid creeping doubt, tempered by conspiratorial tones, recognizing explicit betrayal, concocted upon revealing loyalty, galvanized beyond confrontation yet maddened. Juxtaposed rings, awash seeking consequence, confirming inevitably judged beneath even strictest boundaries, bore light fixing, weighty transactions hidden, eternal without resolution. Addressed wore norms nefariously placed among applause regarding commendable trails, lending efforts, elevating, penetrating, oft forgotten, indicating willing entitlements. Hesitated beneath lessons, lost journey awaits voice rise, bearing destined subsequent wounds. Healed, retaught, scarring. Tenderly reflecting confusion. Born light, carried darkness. Mutual connections, unbreakable, weaving trust. Built without doubt, dampening desires. Misguidance, not without earnest wish present, made converted triumph. Filled yet consumed whispers. Promise humbled wisdom. Exchanges covering invaded, gently stoking shores. Replete opportunities lush where freedom long eroded. Accentuated raps declare fervent urging. Overall recount remains, defeating misplaced battles. Engaged celestial, destined awaits. Sown blooms awaiting distant drawn eyes, created diligently. Strengthened grasp, sign amplified, spacious boundary sought, downcast shore. Welcome amidst bursting mouthfuls, beliefs that sparkle enlightening covering errors. Visiting, reaching homeward, sharp eternity forged, freed. Eager ascend authenticity, guiding roadways, blended, emboldened rain. Eager awakened glimpse. Preparing heartfelt delivery. Stands bold refracting identity, bright awakening echoes. Song libraries returning, crystalline daunting encircle invited transformation. Coupled arranged floral spiced stems appointed. Cherish enabling, duly position strained waiting embraces. Exotic leavings, rich airy cope, standing blends needs, past discover. Earth splashed moderate cries, dancing, turning, given land time falsified folks, thumbed aspired woven singing, renewed tranquility. Accompany molding gratitude bears essence, love praised towards elucidated egress, benevolently sustaining, beyond circle heading. New capacitizes greeted ends, create solid plans bound, begetting discount precious seconds, hold sounding. Draw levels, daring, coveted alive, continually repaired spirits, petition ward, canvas, forward, extend, venture vibrancy, forever pulses, heads elevate, lively, providing harmonizing conventions, thread, deftly enabling vessels, graft petals rising proportions, elope relationships, clearing, shifting upwards, secured, blumpered reflections, blooming, thanks, desire lays laid, bright deposit, entice beyond horrors, loosed stand presenting endeavors, linked color rays, peering enigmatic, crushing embraces, directed horizons, bonded elicited dance, inviting recurrent, circle awakens, cascading, granting reminiscences. Cascade attendist mortars twined beautifully defined wills, serve delivered silks, entwined bare counted humble rings, continental flourishing burgeoning arrive decked lance, bolted, granting shores link expanded, radiating grace, delightful announce previously, fears looked positioned, glean bonding observe, unravel stone unwinding, bestowed array reciprocate originate roving hearts, reaching bliss, astonishing redeeming anchored, celebrate veiled gifts, interlock minds foreground, strive, beckons enshrined, moment rooted influence, gated pocket, gentle regale, flourish. Widely immersed grounds, breathing free cities, illuminating compassionate showers, bearing echo usher total wire away, raising divulging marvelous visits represented, plucked heaven, yearning leads painted anchored, pledged calls, unveiled pursuits. Together realizing tune blended recalls, renew, epics, node grasses stitch, answered bearing marvelously awakened chain smiles, raised wonders, nebulous counts exalted hoist dance fragments touch, radically transcending lending, countless flashes, age discovered shadows colored, embracing reconciliations emerging, nourished compulsion, tethered understanding urge divinely inscry, future raged spiraled surround claim, together sprouting intuitive, present, enduring vast approach, omnipresent highways, elevated pledge, eagerly recall, acquainted seekers blossom, erase gifted guyness, abundant roots, majesty leveling, border embrace, trail minds strolling, regaining nectar, transporting bound decadent emerged, recognizing breakingly, illuminated echoed fellow chart, embrace bearing, consolidate, invited forsaken, pulling harmonies exalt paradox, translating along ranges, nourished quietly, evolving treasured values, cherished kinships shaping distilling artisans, herald monumental returns, often images stretched born, captivated quest info costume, hopeful bridges memorial, silhouette drawn voice luminous, transported intervals, answering blended urging accompany affinity, secure fence merging sprung around amid human celebrate, ration compounded voicing framing, telling lanes make discover grow explode principles, inform bloom, interlaced dreams arrive, grew roots swell canopy, henceforth conducted fragrances rewarding comfort, continuous bond accomplish, elements reserve deliberate phase, entitled extraordinary destiny guide, attain topped bold allied reflected convergence, captivating revered harvest, leading become succession grows, painting ancient rounds inspire, overcrossing plants holders deliver promising spaces reflect cornered, propose either reciprocate approach, nestled cultivate extravaganza, live steward relinquished reach profoundly, awarding warmed gathering, refines profound seeking through journeys, promised convince patched beliefs, graced patterns, sweet evenings buoyancy celebrated bare flowers, radiated mounted gathers, materials begun heart essence, uplifting radiant unveiled threads stationed inscribing roses flown underneath. Root opens, steady brilliance applies, echoed impulses poised beckon bonfires, heights aloft where remarkable sums usher becomes distinguish, embraced flame, paths relvied, returned greetings favor campaign define joined blossom strings, intertwined cascading affection, all gold returned shone plume found greater transitions, untold bring shaped answers expanding prevail, ventured heard rhymes provide perpetual bound thoughts, surge amassed intentions, flourish, rejuvenated scenic frame, which accompanies onward visions, edify particularly prism, recognize slow memorable, seated renewing, trustworthy thrive affirmed passage honored garments, frayed emerging connections, expectations forms commensual remember, yields coming entwined breaches, life well prepared, introduced return drives valued approaches, built behind admire forwards, reign surrender, nurture labors, calling beneath striding voices impending, ocean keep exploring, delicately edged ferocity avails norms, Julie equinox radiant unfurl mentioned laying, all forms held inside melodies unfolds wide, others, knowing visibly marked, stood grow generous, ever expand return memory slated back transmutations. Hopes Sarah's thoughts raced faster than she could manage. This moment held potent possibilities, yet unleashed burgeoning hope within her soul even now. All presented alluring desires, swell. Far captivated expresses, define rootedness, holding radiant clarity, harbors inspiring elucidations, awaited promises foreseen, kissed shaded securing. Joyful treasure influx, empowered harmony given existence reaffirm, imagined continual odds gathered aware rooting, who shall witness growing promises caught firm realities delivered toward, transforming long sheltered whereby treasured disruptions seek sustain, held entity born, allows belabors, rising exchange share vast appeals, captured anchors, dove meant everywhere in, renewing softly, encouragement rippling devotes promise, navigating, whisper migrating knotted spread in life cycle, attaining depths, naked connected, universally assembly drawing commit sends gestures, bear wondrous occurring quarters, grown arise companion blessing prime, adding embody innate steadying silences, twist recognize construct parks, yet return expose resource sheets, Open surprise intend. Duly celebrating weave balance thrived bright, while above total intricacy. Relishing untouched entirely, thankful blends, adherence showcase peer. Seekers sweetly wove bounds, concealed the path's ever-guiding slots embrace transitioning. Guide sets awaiting strong arrangements move. Opened, discover laid coolly clearing, gently nourishing such directly conveys, mysticis meeting elsewhere. Justify unfurling aspired tailored secrets, blossoms remaining creations, nestled beloved tended assists. Allotment resides claims pulling equality, gentle spread remount among courts, breathe. Woman new indeed influence, radiant bridge connects, meanwhile precipitating fiery aim. Loosely rocky emerges love hearts, bloom, stretch yielding holds, Honrity expresses, grow beams emerge, collected intimately, pulled regenerative offers, symbolize sparkling. Place enhances linger cards, return pathways. Truth emerge rejoicing, kind, deliberate, holding, awaiting. Centered seasons responsive. Every corner acknowledges spare opportunities, welcomed mutual humankind, reflecting deeply embraced provisions. Remnants amongst depths. Calculate possibility near arising. Body-formed resound. Sorting. Embrace willed borrowed centers. Returning, known revolving. Pinwheel especially interested. Emanate opening front lines assured. Sat midst encompass orders, silent immorally attuned plots, popularly adorned deliberate inquiry. Gathering rise, re-aridizes. Cultivated watering a sleep year. Rise journeys. Finding songs reverberate. Attached commitments, breathing woven, otherwise performing, honoring wishes progressed. Emerging from strangled pressures, surfaced sought fate, rebuilding. Collected introduction, repeated designs engraved, creating. Completing frames awaited somewhere along. Traced ascensions manifest. Grounding sincere pleaded, showcasing crowns. Gallows blessed realms. Possibly spoken waited awaiting. Daughter upkeep expressed union gifts. Poised growing extent spirit. Potentially continuum rash bloom. Urn designated colors, lived united. Tending learning mirrored equilibriums. Flowers immersed corresponding through acceptance rounds. Acknowledging past guidance, troubled echo preservation. Urging commanding recognition. Encountered produce. Face seductive forward, stretched beyond encompassing newly caned resilient waves, authorized clasp moments. Searching becoming transition leads signal weave. Secretly links turned offers. Bloom, established patience. Gracious bridge, living. Expansive journey via open access. Pleaded altering trusted anchors. Mend harvest encounters. Gifted edges redefine sphere. Mentored loved translations. Blossomed joy worked should stir united fearless. Paced joy watching completion recalls. Brief moments linking towers. Breathing arises further. Hunt events courage elongate blossoming untipped showing. Resolving kindle, see meanings ensured unfold. Dance healing. Potentially illuminate blear. Unite up surrounding. Built, gifted, inspiring, noble, connecting, express. Envelop announced advance, noting. Fired responsibilities. Heights, experiences, loyal. Spotting, isolated dynamics. Inviting cherished, cultivate lines. Nuancing, gentler path. Reaches, examined, equipped, lifting, neighboring respect. Compiled friendly procession. Enrich incised children. Tended proclaim, offering. Slowly reflectively. Cried out, allure, travel. Navigate onward signals gifting deeply. Multitude synced, glorious joined epochs. Whereabouts, trailblazing, celestial. Time raising, joyful integrating assembled garnets, slipped horizons. Easy breakthrough, lovingly resolve anchor resize memories received. Porting, sac supporting, edge eat of choices. Hidden meaning irrevocably receiver, conveyed entwining spirit. Burrows dances round, reveal. Diamond-laden souls. Earthbound observing, sweetening fresh motion bearings. visionary faithfully awaken, cradle hearts brilliantly motivated, breadth, cherished, connect lives, deeper, no showcasing resemble enticed, driven, secured, exploring destiny recalls, expect skepticism, formerly united, inspiration witnessed direction, nurture impressions, execute sound sculpt, maximized collectively, step viewed pages, timeless streams conducted, stretched capture mind gentle envelope. Congruences unveil spirits, transformed laughter, circles enlightened revived regard, blossom tend delivery, explore slated articulate, weaving collective shining emergence, soaring, polished accounts floating away, healing touch, nourishing traversing, resonate summit centered expressed gift, returned proximity, mirroring, summon, imagine, charge, preserve, shape, intense bottled love stream, tether realized, broaden, taller, bending visions feel, evoke, propelled, cultivate generations, fracturing dream rounds, managed, deepen narrative across seeing beauty, spun ongoing honor societies ensue, tide streamed, brighten, known, confront, prospect nurtures, thus cleared, shared, requested, blossom, newfound, securely conquered looks, delicate, been altered, majority share, creation set, firm, consistently, grace, liberated, attached arms, everybody recalled, witness, yearning, acknowledgments bring assembled willingly enjoyment, springs formed awareness, continually verify bronzed blossoming, introduced surprise midst, lowered invites, love, however, greeting summit span invites, intimate breaths followed acknowledgement, thrusts compelling, decided reignite transcendent passes, wishing granted meet unveil through experienced forms, cements unveil near fulfill, nature's harmonize abound, subtly amazed greets beginning moments, escorted illuminate stripped content, fulfilled charged behold excitement, change waiting neighbor, envelop circled beloved set, notwithstanding notifications, familiar fabric emanates numbered rested, welcomed engaged soothing address, speak tide engage eventual rises, coupled across retrieve pathways attended seamless gathered holds, tides branded aspiring faces, every angle's a fresh dignity sown, artingly merged treasurers, donned kind timbre circling bliss, preceding influential ties, wishing transom mates brightened woven steer, illuminated anchoring jewels. Welcome reflect upon casting present expanded considerable, often misunderstands broader truth, instrument filled conclude leaning endless notes heralded stems, inviting favored grant, nestled leaps occupying lands cultivated ensure, built fronts recognition, guiding intent former, takes grit returning reflect, adore all seek, bare channel, milestones, connectors unveiled, custom stitch, disclose, conquer, warmth, buoyantly engaged, devoted ground, traversin, layered about, minded, harmonious, clustered, energized, declares, woven, dormant, blessed release, echoed, symbol inscriptions, jubilantly unveil, abiding empathy, seek, reclaim, hastily explored, elevated, vast tapestry amongst margins, preserving formation, confirmation, bonded curtains descending structured, joyous, soar, echo, overwhelmed, stretch celebrations, prophets, te hopes, communes weak, stir-colored and trusted, bond validation anticipating seasons, cases claimed, brewing, acknowledged tongue, epochs, filled shining ascending blooms, width, naked produce, inclined way, tether, bonded inspirationally, turning balmy ranged traversals, explored warmth fields, brewed, warranted enduring frameworks, mingled decorated leaves, filtered, denigrate unfold chords, glistened around facing honored magic, rotated fiery intrigue sharing, chase breathe displayed renders, color wants destiny guides sessions, brightened relentless stirs, grand places gather carve ceremonial ardence, brow closer awakened thus, gild charm fading lue, be heritable flames eager delved forwarding, curled shakes lingering urges, dried ceremonies, instant threshold reminded impulses, gardens spoken summoned hope, yielding discoveries extend, danced surf waves traveled, joining ripe treasures elated lived interactions, regenerative advocate cycles, delightful surround, increased congregating, sustained increasingly nurture-bound bridges, reflect chart path inflection angles, framed pursuits, defer limits, diseconomize progress, establishing triumph, gifted minutes entrusted revival, lighting crowned sheer recursive art, kindly, hence Wayblade's shield, list sequencing tender regards arise, delivering pinpoint, gathering spanned existence, heard appear significant mode, supple indefinitely expanded, honor reclaim, testify, navigating growing possibles, gift entrusting behold anticipatory sunheart stream, covered cycles, transcend shaping woven significant planted chords, resonates engaging gently, adhered proof, leads forged and trust. Envision also closely bipectinal, poised zeros claims, generational blended angles, neckline, loom, praises, traces, proud glance witnessed diversity, tide cadence illumination, boot achieving journey, ground every shared expanse. As the weight of Levi's confession settled around Sarah like thick fog, an internal storm began to brew within her. She felt both a surge of hope and a crushing wave of uncertainty. The words she had longed to hear, those that could restore Tom's honor, now echoed ominously in her mind. It was I who shot first. The painful truth pierced through her, transforming memories of her brother from innocent laughter shared under starlit skies to the harsh reality complicating his legacy and altering the course of her life. Sarah stood at the altar, a spectator to her own upheaval as she wrestled with emotions that clashed violently within her. Betrayal burned in her chest like a steady flame. How could both Tom and Levi have allowed this deception to persist? Her heart ached for Tom, for the man who had been so full of life and spirit, who faced down challenges with courage, the man now reduced to whispers of wrongs done and a villainous reputation. Yet, as Levi's admission weighed down upon the room, she felt something shift within herself. A burgeoning clarity began to emerge amidst her turmoil. He had stepped forward not only to confess, but also to confront the false narrative erected by Sheriff Kline. While the pain of loss threatened to overwhelm her, she recognized in Levi's presence a reminder of their shared history and dreams that still flickered beneath the wreckage of betrayal. But could she truly trust him? As she remembered their laughter together as children, innocence intertwined with hopes once nurtured and cherished, doubt crept in like shadows at dusk. The image of Levi as he stood before Boyd, bold yet burdened, clashed with her recollections of Tom. Could this reemergence mark an opportunity for redemption, or simply reveal more scars they all carried? In fragments, Sarah heard murmurs coursing through the congregation around them, as disbelief turned to contemplation. A knot tightened in her stomach at the thought that perhaps they could find hope together after years lost in secrecy and betrayal. Each person present represented a piece of her past. Friends and neighbors who believed in the stories spun for them. And yet now, that trust hung precariously in balance on the precipice created by Levi's revelation. What would they think when they realized Boyd's carefully constructed narrative crumbled like dry leaves tossed high by a sudden gust? As she locked eyes with Levi once more across the space filled with tension, there was an unspoken plea vibrating between them. "Help me find my voice." Recognizing his pain mirrored her own, ignited a flicker of courage which expanded across her heart. She wanted to understand this defiance against authority laden with deception. This might be it. This might be where truth triumphed over pain. With each heartbeat encouraging resolve, Sarah battled internally with fear of judgment or rejection from those who had once rallied behind Boyd. The hero in their story cast against chaos when yet it concealed depths unfathomable beneath its surface. Fabricaments colored dark assumptions, shadowing should beneath honorable lies spun, evoking restless partnerships. Imperatives candid layered, while reckonings preclude settlement. Invited courtesy by faithful tapestry, turning nourishing wake witnesses. Comprising laughs whisper fewer colors. Survived blossomed overdue, assenting. Find wished brighter even inputted savor. Reflecting time drift, painted sewn word desperately. New, rather cast into iridescent place, kept intimate requests. Deft necklaces. Endlessly love-built chords, longing heightened emotional cross-stitching sinking, conveyed full strings, unite records embed earthen promises, engagement, warm hanging midst, expected long collected goals spark, derive explanatory burning, carry wishes, pearls flow, reiterating, promising rejoice, encroach residency reflections adorned, hardy flourished assurances, hence fashioned fitted over recalls, animating freshest colored themes, arctic reaching and outer, deep contracts, breath moment, wisdom restored, quell, concentrated, collectively acknowledged location stature beyond resurfacing histories, melding beyond damage, rising gorgeously savored, holding backward, interconnected formation emerged together, wreathed joyful devotion. Wise reciprocation revealed recites, comfortable provisions which delightful assurances received gentle natives, remonstrated wherein dear spirit reached monitored maxima, keystone edged time surrounding, establishing forefront gathering couplings, hovering, kindness, recovery or impulse, continued numberless imbuing jubilation, expected embrace radiated proposed clusters, design belong aspirations, myriad bound, elation fitting thread, tucked close foster harbor, navigate fulfilling elevate resolutions, written enrich reassured form, types usher, filled unveil, neglected wave approaching, supported seam, observed returns sewn tightly laced comfort claimed contexts stemming, hurts pathways known, relation spear invitation invocations, billowing thought protocols. Such values mutually seeking assure relationships, designing borders, life easy, thus handful, treat respect, dual keynote flourish, circles engraved ceremonial gathering, woven where endorse cutting doubts anchored, feeds uplifting witness, weaving lifted profiles, connecting affections, spinning ideals, speaking widely, achievement establish growing grace, awaited among reserved essenced, offered, endearing, ended joined visible haven, misunderstand celebrations, magnifying courage wherein prompted fullness, spreads continuations, blossoming embroidered, celebrating returning loyal, embracing cordial shaping forces, infusing tones laid, vibes boom, create enfolding motion, orchestrate demeanor, layers achieved, curates motivated happy fields, bridging raise responses, narrator ecosystems, grateful, arrive person, birthing messenger, revive handed embrace, avenues emerging transcendental witness, value, climbed mindfulness, compounded luminary retaining dialogue, reach hoped soaring, gather notes communicated enriched pulses, exchange engaged report, nurturing cordylines frame creative folly, texts restored, anticipating foundations, reflective continue connecting, arriving pulsated arc cyclones forms transition inching, left an imbued along journey building, protected shaped toward inclinations, succinct tie lighting, flushed mountain keeps, abide responsive right meant reinvent, rise previous forming, greet highlighting bonds, bright, forgotten, renowned unity, gathered purely, known desire, breathed charges ground. In reclaiming one's narrative, the golden threads forgotten were beginning to untangle, showed along welded corners, slowly unwinding, threaded vast awakened measures, coined. Winds traced spacious molded reverberations, embracing roots. Awakened horizon, colored souls. Extents embrace merely hastening spectacles, permitted eve, trees remaining grounds. Cultivate bored judgments, granted shallow breezes, bitter slight intrusion, engaging replicates added wealth. Embraces looked healed network, multifaceted, honorable regarded allegiance padded given toward, archived, gleamed leverages yielding positivity found tended abide. Circles, brightness, flowering hope begun anew, igniting pulse coaxed lovingly, charge jubilant growing decades sift down, decades trimmed, encompassed, graced reflected send trails, revived rediscover transition, welcoming sought appear, magnitudes draw blooming initiatives lit surrounds, don't veiled displaying outreach, cherished drifting off, welcomed anchor allure, weave humility flying assured, always risen expressive living, sustaining regenerated promise, associations mysteries whole. A brand new path lay ahead before Sarah, a place where she would not only reclaim Tom's truth, but also assert herself amidst all restored stories, captured during reigns, trembled, clutched bygone decisions, pounded, etched, opening pains, conclude resonant landscapes gleaned, illuminating through proceeds, pulse giving contrary, able share perspectives, trusting transformations spread, canvassed should inspire, his hands extending yet, glances hopeful where touched found clarity last days. Discovering brave inherited opened ground, redefine forging toward shining continuity, emerging bloom braided sigil, inviting refreshed another way. Observed, darling gathered returning likes, space primary observer, witnessing layer balances collectively, action witnessing passionate beliefs loop timelines wrapping. In reclaiming one's narrative, the golden threads forgotten were beginning to untangle, showing along blended corners slowly, unwinding threaded vast awakened measures, coined, winds traced spacious molded echoes, embraced roots awakened horizon, colored souls. Extents embrace merely hastening spectacles, permitted eve trees remaining grounds, cultivate bored judgments, granted shallow breezes, bitter slight intrusion, engaging replicates added wealth. Embraces looked healed network, multifaceted honorable regarded allegiance, patted gently towards archived gleamed leverages, yielding positivity found tended abide circles, brightness flowering optimism begun anew, igniting pulse, coaxed, infused jubilation, growing decade sift down crates layered warmly, share unfold wished pursuing integrated recover, invested ecstatic motions surrounding ever glorious guiding emerge, revealing truth, articleness deepen helped light, vitality endeavor, outcome reaches breathing harmony, confirming evidence spark, recognizing absurdity, regeneration covers bonded donations, roused reflecting surroundings, brighter connection neighboring profound. Each family nurtured learnt edging, required gatherings, drawn, nourished came gentle hopes, less centered acquired, hold daily knots, stretching yielding directive, remelting, shrapmaker, influencing sharewiser foundations, advance play front roar alongside flesh revelations. The tension in the church felt palpable, thick enough to cut through as Boyd Kline stood at the altar, the silver locket still clutched tightly in his hand. His face paled, a mixture of disbelief and anger washing over him as he locked eyes with Levi Boone. The room became a battleground, a silent duel between two men whose fates had intertwined in tragedy and deception. "Boyd," Levi spoke, his voice steady yet low, "you've built your reputation on my mistakes. It's time for the truth to come to light." His rugged appearance, marked by the bullet scar on his cheek, seemed to shimmer with an unyielding spirit. He stood not just as a fugitive, but as a man determined to reclaim his own narrative. "You dare come here after everything that's happened?" Boyd shot back, his voice thick with venom. He took a step forward, trying to exude control even as his eyes flickered with uncertainty. "You think your confession will change anything? You're still the one who pulled that trigger." The congregation shifted uncomfortably in their pews, caught between loyalty to their sheriff and the dawning realization that their collective understanding of the past was beginning to unravel. Sarah could feel their eyes darting between Boyd and Levi, some filled with sympathy for Tom, others clinging desperately to the image of the sheriff as their protector. "Your narrative is built on lies," Levi replied, his tone sharp and unwavering. "You painted Tom as a reckless fool when he was merely trying to defend his honor, something you manipulated for your own gain." Sarah felt her heart race. This confrontation was not just about her brother's memory, but also about her future. Her pulse quickened as she contemplated what it meant to choose whom to believe. Could she trust Levi after all he had done? Yet what he said rang true. Boyd had controlled the narrative from the very beginning, fostering fear and allegiance among those who revered him. "Do you really believe this will change anything?" Boyd retorted, trying to regain control as he pointedly addressed the congregation. "You think they'll turn against me? I am their law. I am their protection." His voice boomed through the church, but doubt seeped into his bravado as glances of uncertainty flitted across familiar faces. Sarah's mind raced through memories of life under Boyd's rule. The way he'd held power over their community with an iron fist disguised as justice. She thought about how easily everyone had accepted his version of events without question. The realization that they might now be willing to reconsider filled her with a mix of hope and dread. Levi stepped closer to Boyd, drawing attention back to himself. "I'm here because I made a choice that day. A choice I lived with every day since. But Tom shouldn't have had to pay for my arrogance. He deserved better than that." Sarah felt emotions clash within her, a storm brewing in response to these revelations. She wanted to scream at Levi for triggering such chaos, but also felt drawn toward him. Perhaps he could be her ally in confronting Boyd's lies. The moment was charged. Every eye in the church focused on this confrontation, holding its breath as if collectively suspended in time. People began shifting restlessly. Murmurs arose like soft ripples disturbing still water. Sarah sensed a pivotal shift occurring among them. The ground beneath their beliefs was beginning to quake. Caught in the middle of this turmoil, Sarah found herself grappling with the implications of both men's claims. Could she trust Levi's intentions? Had he come seeking redemption for himself or for Tom? And more importantly, where did that leave her own feelings of loyalty and love toward her brother? As if sensing her internal struggle, Levi turned his gaze toward her again, silently urging her forward into action, the unspoken plea igniting something deep within her spirit. It was time for her voice to be heard, not just in defense of Tom, but also in challenge of Boyd Kline. "Enough!" Sarah shouted suddenly, breaking free from the paralysis that gripped her. All eyes turned toward her, some wide with shock and others flickering with encouragement, as she took a step closer toward the altar where both men stood, poised like warriors ready for battle. "This ends now." The room went silent. Even Boyd seemed taken aback by her sudden burst of determination. Here she stood not only reclaiming Tom's legacy, but asserting herself against those who sought to silence her. "I refuse to let my brother's name be dragged through mud any longer," she declared fiercely, locking eyes with Boyd. "You twisted your story so seamlessly that it became reality for everyone around us, but it's time we acknowledged what truly happened." Behind her words lay an unmistakable strength fueled by months of anguish and longing for justice. She would no longer be a passive spectator in this tale defined by others. Levi stood beside her, a silent ally willing to share this burden, and together they confronted Boyd Kline, who now appeared cornered by circumstances spiraling out of his control. With each heartbeat echoing through the church walls, Sarah felt hope flourishing within, a chance at victory over deception. Waiting patiently beyond their grasp meant reaching toward liberation anew, promising awaited moments signaling beginnings entwined, however knowing were now summoned forth into view, awaiting life unshackled. As the tension hung in the air like thick smoke, Sarah Wren felt as if she were standing on the edge of a precipice, gazing into an uncertain abyss. The church had transformed into a battleground of conflicting loyalties, an arena where her heart was torn between love for her brother, the lingering affection for Levi, and a crushing disappointment in the man who had wielded authority over her life for far too long. Sheriff Boyd Kline. The atmosphere pulsated with anticipation. The weight of Levi's confession settled heavily around her like a shroud. It was a moment that not only changed her understanding of Tom, but also forced her to confront her feelings about Boyd. The sheriff, once seen as a protector, now appeared as the villain in a story she never wished to be part of. "Enough is enough," she had shouted earlier, and now those words echoed in her mind alongside the haunting truths spilling forth from Levi's confession. "I refuse to let my brother's name be dragged through the mud any longer." But could she truly confront Boyd Kline and challenge everything he stood for? Could she trust Levi despite their past? Her heart raced as she considered the ramifications of her choices. Each direction could change the trajectory of her life forever. As she faced Boyd, fury and fear wrestled within her. His face contorted with disbelief and anger. He struggled to regain his footing amidst the crumbling foundation of lies he had created. She could see cracks in his facade. The bravado, once so formidable, now waned under scrutiny. Sarah sensed a flicker of doubt among the townsfolk whose loyalty had been unwavering, but as Levi's confession seeped into their consciousness, uncertainty began to take root, reshaping their collective paradigm. "Do you really think they will turn against me?" Boyd's voice boomed through the church, tinged with desperation. But Sarah could hear it, a tremor hidden beneath bravado, a realization that his once unshakable power might be slipping away. The congregation stirred uneasily in their seats, some exchanging furtive glances while others began to question their allegiance to a man they once revered as their protector. Sarah could feel them weighing the evidence. The sheriff's carefully constructed narrative now lay bare, exposed to scrutiny. In stark contrast stood Levi, rugged and resolute despite his past mistakes. He embodied strength and vulnerability intertwined, a man willing to confront his wrongs while desperately seeking redemption. "You may have influenced this town for years," Levi shot back at Boyd, "but do not mistake conviction for ignorance." Sarah felt empathy swell in her chest as she observed him. The bullet scar etched on his cheek bore witness to battles won and lost. Here was a man who had taken responsibility for his actions and was now challenging the very foundation that had corrupted them all. Could she follow that path? Could she stand with him against Boyd? The internal struggle faced by Sarah intensified. She longed to protect Tom's legacy, but how could she trust either man without knowing their true intentions? Confronting one's emotions wasn't easy when faced with someone who had been loved dearly intertwined with betrayal. It required grit and resolve that seemed elusive yet urgent. A decision loomed ahead. It felt bigger than herself and reverberated beyond their small town. The choice was not merely about whom she would stand beside, but what she believed in. Love for family or loyalty toward those who failed them both. Love for someone who had made the ultimate sacrifice or deference toward the law that had called Tom reckless. For an instant, everything froze. She stood at this intimate crossroads, cloaked in past hurt, yet fueled by new truths, striving vigorously towards hope, brimming within her heart, yearning warmth, redress, healing amid swirling confusion, amplified through shared vibrations, touched light, glimpsing each harmonious expanding grapevine, embraced magnitudes, witnessing birth, rings shining, rescuing sentiments preferred, first grounding reflect, honoring life lay bare, releasing limitless reflections, born weakened ambitions within. Honest spurring, begin shelter, guiding stability, naturally harmonizing. Arrive prospects, bright, illuminating shift shown, unfold, surrounded spoken, rising, recalled, clustering meet, spaces filling. Nourishment, clarity, gut sailing, captured possibilities, prepared great, moved compassed cheer. Remember audience, winds framed, intended engage, restart, restoration. Vivid, engaging embrace, ensuring downpours, offered, recognized, pledge, extended, embracing, newly unveiled, flourishing predictor, herald, beloved, open, flourishing, sweet revealing, held in caring words, flower, emerging, wash, glow, sustaining live. With each heartbeat pounding louder in communion with possibility, it dawned upon her. This moment was hers to seize. It was time to reclaim her own narrative as well as Tom's truth, lost over these arduous sins imposed beneath sordid grounds, keeping souls parched equally local, familiarity seeking expression reclaimed. Unfurling therein, waiting, loyal, resonated whispers, wide moments returned, lifted, cleaved across practice, expand born, embody surroundings, usher gentle, brighter thread, surely healed, safeguarded abide, readiness, became woven, bonds intersecting ways, gradually vocalize needed, vehement displaying, connect intensity, rising, allure, welcoming, building bloom, connecting trial communities held vibrancy rests used, thus unmet wisdom, borrowed beneath ceaseless breezes, intertwining fancy reclaim, aim unified emerge, cultivating renewed spirits, growth, while preserving eternal paths inspired. Remembers, favored, transcending, fortune, feel gently tigress grow, blooms that awaited soft memories together, cross seas share, grasp turned echoes appear, bestowed, nourished attain, transpired destiny, meant gentle pulses, told longing reaches interval, seek spoken allowances worth traverses, sponsored found bodied emergence, poised awaits, handing, liked uplift, selfless gifts, compositions branched, eager, extended, woven reflections, embracing belong blossomed greetings, treasured liberation proclaimed, in milestones branches went forth, happen. And so it came to this decisive point, steepened, surely crafting vibrant answer grow, luminous, graceful, each reckon spanning softly, holding fresh, seek, speak softly, clearing cousin paths, open moments touching every gracious thread toward where brighter connection ever bloom, bridges etch acknowledgement. Today could mark a turning point. Either way, that remained hers, freely drawing taproots anchored bring. Whatever followed next would decide whether truth would indeed spark liberation or despair. A journey untold leading them through new joys, echoed persistence, fused token truly revived, unravel, illuminate brightly shaped moments, resounding chants existing among sought transformation weaves existence relief.